Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. It's been a year since Israel began its attack on Gaza, and the war shows no sign of letting up. In fact, the war has now expanded to Lebanon. We're going to discuss that with Dr. Shabir now. Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
We need to keep talking about this, Dr. Shabir. It's been a year. We continue to see the same scenes as we've seen in Gaza, continue in Lebanon, people dying, body parts all around, people evacuating, mass movement, and yet world powers are not doing anything about it.
Yeah, this is really terrible. It's difficult to understand why the world will allow this to continue. Of course, there have been massive protests. There have been a lot of popular movements to try and pressure the authorities to do something. But for some reason, the authorities, the world powers, leave things as they are. There's a lot of talk about intervening, about encouraging the powers to enter into an agreement to stop the war and all of that. But in the end, things just go on. All of this just happens to be talk. And in the meantime, 41,000 people in Gaza have died, more than half of that number being of women and children. And now, as you said, it's going into Lebanon as well. People being ordered to evacuate from the south so that the expressways have become a one-way traffic going up to the north. People being displaced in the thousands, hundreds being killed. So where does this all end? Like, is this a repeat all over again? We're getting to the anniversary of the start of the bombardment on Gaza, and we were hoping that at least something must happen, and the war must end. Now we see that a new war is starting in Lebanon. With the people there being killed and pagers going off in shopping malls and in other areas where civilians definitely got hurt. Where does all of this end? So it's difficult to contemplate, but we call on the world powers to continue to do what they can, even if they haven't done much before, to do what they can. Everyone must do what they can to bring an end to these conflicts.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the United States has so much power in the world that, it's giving all these weapons to Israel and all this money, and doesn't seem to care that this is going on. It's saying that it wants an end to this, but at the same time, well, we know what the end is. Stop giving the weapons, stop giving the money. That will end the war, right? Because Israel won't be able to do it on its own.
That's right. And, so all the talk about, okay, we want peace, we want freedom, we want democracy, but it seems that there is another goal that is being pursued, that is the annihilation of the people of Gaza, and now also clearing of land in southern Lebanon. So who knows?
And people, clearing of people.
Yes, of course. This cannot be allowed to continue. The world cannot let this remain on our conscience, that we, as people in the modern times, have sat back and we have allowed such massive killing and a loss of life and displacement of civilians to take place. None of this is necessary. See, in the case of a just war, Safiyyah, one would be pursuing war as a last resort. But in this case, we see, especially with the attack on Lebanon, where is the diplomatic effort? Where have the negotiations been in order to prevent the loss of life and the harm to civilians? It looks like the war becomes the first resort rather than the last one. So there is some other sinister motive at work here, and we must confront that.
And Dr. Shabir, I think this has been a wake-up call for Muslims and Arabs. We thought, okay, there were all these advancements. We were making peace in Canada and in the West. We were trying to engage in efforts to try and help people to understand Islam, and things were changing. People were accepting us, but then when this happened, it made us realize, our lives don't matter. Right? Nobody cares. Look how many people are dying and nothing is happening. And at the same time, Arab countries seem completely helpless to do anything. right? And we know that the U.S. has military bases in all these countries, so it's not like they could even do anything if they wanted to, right? To intervene to try and stop this war. So it's a very difficult state of affairs for Muslims, for Arabs all over the world, I would say.
Yeah, Safiyyah, at the same time, those efforts that we have made to explain Islam, to remove misconceptions, to live and show how Muslims can live in peace and harmony with people where Muslims are minorities, such as here in Canada. All of these efforts must continue, and we must not think that all of these efforts have gone to waste, because we see the devastating situation now, but we don't know how much worse it might have been had we not been making these efforts. So I think these efforts do have their place, and they do make a difference in changing the lives of people and the minds of people one at a time. So we see the massive movements on the ground of people demonstrating, camps being set up at university campuses and so on. It shows that our message is getting through to the populace, but at least to large segments of the populace. There are still the old diehards, as there are flat earthers, people who still, would not want to understand and appreciate Islam and Muslims. But the world is changing in that direction, at least on the ground level. But at the level of governments, we see that some of the world powers still have certain interests to protect, and they will continue to protect that. They're not after truth and justice and fairness, though they might speak that language. They are after personal interests and goals. And so we must be aware of that. Now, at the same time, Muslim powers have to reevaluate and ask ourselves, how have we become so weak as an ummah as a whole? And how have Muslim countries become so dependent on others, so that the military bases of our other powers are set up within these countries? We have to think hard about our own systems of education. We have to think about our own investment into research and development. God has blessed many of the Arab countries with natural resources, which are very lucrative. What are they doing with that wealth? Is it being invested in producing science and technology, and making advances in medicine and in technology, as our predecessors used to do? If we fail in that respect, well, then we will become entirely dependent on others who are making advances in those fields.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiyyah and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.